Airbus is the world's leading aircraft manufacturer. Its Tianjin final assembly line is the first in China and first one outside of Europe.
This is the headquarters of Airbus China in Beijing.
This is Eyes On with Aiping. Today, we take you inside the headquarters of Airbus China and sit down with its Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Michel Tranvan, to see how Airbus China has been doing since the pandemic.
Mr. Tranvan, thank you very much for accepting our interview.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you. So we know that Airbus is the world's leading aircraft manufacturer, and we noticed that the production and delivery status of Airbus Tianjin Final Assembly Company has been pretty stable and smooth, even facing the challenging global pandemic. So can you give us an overview of the company's production and deliveries in the past few years, especially since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, of course. Tianjin has been an old story between Airbus and China, and particularly Tianjin. We have a main facility working on single-aisle, the A320 families of our aircraft, but we do have as well wide-body capabilities for A330 and A350 now. But you know, it's not only a production facility. We are as well delivering aircraft to our customers. And we have welcomed some aircraft assembled outside of China and delivered them in Tianjin, and we're talking about 17 additional. It's a long history, and it's a history that will continue, and we'll certainly be talking about A321 capability by the end of this year.
Well, one thing that people keep talking about was the disruption that the pandemic has brought to the global supply chain. And an aircraft obviously is made up of millions of components, and the industry is deeply dependent on the global supply chain. So what are some of the impacts and difficulties that the pandemic has brought for Airbus, and what measures have Airbus been taken to tackle these challenges?
And I think the first impact is on the airlines themselves. And we've been working a lot with the airlines to try to help them. So the second impact is on our supply chain. We have many partners and suppliers here in China for our aircraft manufactured in Tianjin, but as well for all the other facilities worldwide. And they have been very impressed about the reactivity. There has been, at the end, no impact on our worldwide capacity. And with the suppliers, we've been doing very practical things like reviewing the amount of stock, putting in place some buffers for logistic times as well, because this is becoming more difficult. In a nutshell, we are getting used as well to manage that with the supply chain.
Did Airbus Tianjin, the final assembly line, the factory, did it start production right now?
Tianjin is our first facility and assembly line outside of Europe. So the file in Tianjin is integrated in the overall industrial system of Airbus. So all our factories in China, and particularly Tianjin, are operating. And they are operating normally. So we are delivering aircraft as expected. The supply chain is feeding this file as well as expected.
Can you tell us more about the stories behind, why did Airbus choose to settle in Tianjin? Can you share with us some of the stories behind any special considerations?
I think it all starts with a common ambition and a shared ambition. A shared ambition to develop aviation industry in Tianjin. Of course, there are as well the necessity to have the means to make it happen. And we talked about logistics and port. Particularly important in the current times. We are talking as well about access to talents, and I think that we have set up some cooperations with local universities to develop continuously the skills that we need in the aviation industry.
Yes.
And finally, of course, local subsidies and regulations adapted to our industry has been facilitating and encouraging us to continue to invest in Tianjin.
I wanted to know, Airbus Tianjin, does its main market is in China, the mainland, or is it in the Southeast Asia?
So the priority for Tianjin, and particularly due to proximity, is to help local airlines in China. But there has been some interest coming from airlines in Asia, and we are definitely addressing that providing delivery capabilities to other Asian airlines as well. Those 2,000 employees are international teams, so we are finding our ways to maintain that. We have as well a lot of local employees moving and traveling worldwide to continue that development.
As an important part of the whole industry, what does Airbus Tianjin mean to the upstream and downstream of this whole supply chain?
When you assemble aircraft, you need all those millions of parts that you are mentioning. And those millions of parts are coming from China and from worldwide. One of the very latest examples is the facility that we have in Tianjin for equipping of the fuselage. It was not existing in the past, and it has been created and set up in Tianjin. The partner that we are working with, of course, has facilities all over China, but for efficiency reasons, we have all gathered in Tianjin. So whatever we invest in Tianjin is as well defining the next steps for the complete supply chain. And that's why when we're talking about stability in our production, in the past, future investment, this is giving perspective as well about the evolution and the growth of the supply chain in China.
Well, as you just mentioned, the pandemic has definitely brought challenges and difficulties for all walks of life. And here in China, actually, the government has been rolling out policies and support for enterprises at all levels. So can you share with us if there's any support that are helpful for Airbus? What kind of support did Airbus get?
I think, first of all, there has been a lot of support provided to the aviation in general. And we are benefiting from that as well indirectly. Some examples of support was putting on hold the value-added tax for air transport companies. But more directly and more locally, we have as well benefited from a lot of support, be it on simplifications of customs to make it faster, and to accommodate all those uncertainties on the logistics worldwide. We have benefited a lot as well within Tianjin particularly on the port regulations to accelerate the arrival in our factory of all the major components for our aircraft. This is showing us the importance of having local governments as partners, because then they are directly involved in our business, and particularly Tianjin Free Trade Zone is one of our partners.
Well, what are Airbus prospects in the Chinese market? Can you share with us Airbus' future plans and expectations here?
So first of all, we will stay in China. This is the single country market that is growing the fastest in the long term. We need to support our airlines here in China. Our products are providing to them some competitive advantage, domestically but as well internationally. The second aspect is there are so many opportunities in terms of technologies, in terms of cooperations with fast-growing new companies. Now, this ambition is being translated in new projects. In Chengdu, we are going to start and kick off a large facility for end-of-life management, which means recycling, which means used parts management. So this is one of the examples. We will continue as well looking at partnerships for R&D and technologies. These are all fascinating things that are happening now. I think that we should not be too much influenced by the short-term challenges and difficulties that we see. And we start already seeing some good recovery and prospect for the future. And this is what we are trying to focus on.